the easiest and smartest way to invest your money. Now, I talked about this in my investment course. You can see down below there, and you should buy it. I had given a discount on it last month or 2 months ago or something like that. No more discounts, but it is $200, and it's well worth it. It's in the links in the show notes, and you should buy it for sure. And if you've already bought it, I salute you, because you, my friends, deserve a toast. From Polar, Seltzer, Cranberry, Clementine. It's on BOGOs at Publix. Oh, that's good. If you're a hard drinker like me, I haven't drank alcohol since May 25th, 1997, but who's counting? You still crave those carbonations. You crave it. You need the carbonations. If you quit drinking, you need carbonation to replace it. Anyway, so let me show you what we want to do is yesterday we did the video where we showed you, I think it's 40,000 different endowments and how they were managing their funds. And we showed you that the median, I think, yeah, it was the median endowment fund was 20% less. It performed 20% less than a simple benchmark. That was it. And a benchmark typically 60-40 or something like that, stocks and bonds. I mean, that's net of fees. In fact, the paper that we referenced yesterday showed you that the higher the fee, the less return. This is not debatable. I don't know why anyone would debate that. Again, if you're paying for a money manager and you're not getting other services, it's just the wrong answer. But anyway, in this case, we proved it, well, not me, but the people who did it, 2 guys from MIT, and the other guy from the University of Illinois, they proved that 40,000 different endowments being managed, the median was less than 20% of a simple benchmark. And the net fees was only 0.53, so 53 basis points, which is significantly lower than most likely you're going to get. And it was just not worth it. So then the question is, well, how do I invest instead? Simple, man. And again, I talked about this in my investment course, but we'll show it right here. So as Grok, and not this isn't Grok, this is Claude, and Claude made a mistake, which I'll share with you here in just a second. I say, man, this is what I asked him. Said, what did I say here? Hold on a second. I said, please compare and put in a table returns since 2000 of these 80% stocks, 20% bonds, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, 40% stocks, 60% bonds, and 20% stocks, and 80% bonds. Now I'm using VTI and BND. All right, VTI is the Vanguard Total Stock Index ETF, Total Stock Index ETF, and BND is the Vanguard Total Bond Index ETF. So if you have both of these, you have the entirety of the U.S. market covered, and you literally don't need to do anything else. You don't. Should I buy international? If you want, that's fine. I don't care. VXUS, by all means, buy some. I don't think you need it. I don't have any, but that's okay if you want. But with VTI and BND, you got everything. You got literally, you don't need anything else. That's all you need. Now, the question is, how much do I have in each of these? We'll get in that here in just a second. But just remember, VTI, 70% of VTI is the S&P 500. All right, so I get a lot of people got VOO and VTI. I don't have any qualm with that, but just remember, VOO is already reflected in VTI. 70% of the total stock index is the S&P 500, which is VOO. So you don't need both. You just don't. Unless you're trying to avoid smaller and medium-sized companies, then you'd want all VOO. I don't know why you do that, though, but you don't need to. All right, then BND, 70% roughly of BND is all government bonds and agencies. All right, so it's basically high credit quality, which is government agencies, low risk of not paying or going bankrupt. All right, there's just not much of a risk there of them not paying their interest rate or going bankrupt. So very safe when it comes to credit risk and getting your coupon paid. But, you could have some volatility in the price as we witnessed in 2022, but not nearly to the extent of VTI. So for those who want to get really dicey, it's like really, they want to split this and go here and go there. I said, why? Just do VTI and BND, man. Easy. If you're not exactly sure how to place a trade, and I get it, dude. When I first got this business, I was nervous. Go to my investment course. I'll show you how to do that. Show you how to place a trade. Once you know how to do it, it's easy. I actually have a whole video on how to place a trade. It's easy once you know how to do it. Then you're like, okay, that's it. And then you don't have to do it again. Anyway, so VTI, BND. So the question is, how aggressive are you as an investor? If I'm pretty aggressive, and I am, I'm about 80-20. That's basically what I am. Now, I'm younger, not so young anymore. I'm 55, but I don't see myself retiring for another 10 years or so. So I'm a long-term investor. If I'm in my 20s, 30s, 40s, I don't even know if I need any BND at all. I might just go 100% VTI, except for the fact if I'm on like a thin line on my job. Let's say like when we moved to Texas, I took a job with USAA. We had lots of debt, only one sort of income from my USA job and very little money. And I had 4 young kids. My wife wasn't working. It was a scary time to be Scanlon, that's for sure. And my job, it looked like it was on a thin line because this is going through the Great Recession. People getting laid off left and right. I had nothing to do. I was literally sitting there twiddling my thumbs saying, they're going to cut me. And it didn't. It worked out, but man, it was nerve-wracking. So I wanted to have some safe stuff. So for the first time in my life, I owned some bonds. I didn't have that much money to begin with, but I had enough to pay a couple months of mortgage. That's what I was mostly worried about. So if that's you, you're going to want to have some liquid cash, and this BND isn't really liquid, but for a younger long-term investor, that's about as most liquid as I'd say. I don't think you need a whole lot of cash. I think you need BND. Now again, if you're thinking that there's a good chance you're going to get laid off, absolutely have some cash. But if that's just kind of it could happen, but I'm not so sure, not likely, then just go BND. All right. Now again, or if you're losing sleep at night, if you're like, I can't take the gyration of the markets, then be more aggressive, be more conservative. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. You're not a bad person by being less aggressive. Figure all these fools on there like, you're an idiot if you invest in bonds, blah, 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 the government. Just forget those guys. Don't pay any attention to comments, man. Unless you know who's commenting. Especially when people are commenting anonymously. You don't even know if they're bots, so don't pay attention to those guys. But anyway, so here's the 4 choices I said. I said we want to do 80-20. You can see right here. VTI total return, all right, you can see 25%, 26%, 28%, 2021, 23, 24, but then it would hit 19% down. Negative, so you can see pretty good returns with some serious downsides right there, 37, 19, down 12, 21%. So, we got hit pretty hard, but in the interim, we also made, but we did make a lot of money on top of that, 25, 26, 30. Look at these returns, dude. I mean, going back to 2017, you're just never going to see that again. Now, BND, on the other hand, you can see 1.4, negative 13, negative 2, 7.7. So it didn't have nearly the same rate of return, but also our downsides, negative 13, negative 19. That's not that bad. It's just not. Negative, where is it right here? Negative 2. You see, that's it. So we've had 1, 2, 3 down years in basically 25 in BND. But that right there was the worst down year bonds have ever had. Nothing even comes close. So that was a bad year for bonds, but that's the worst you'll ever see. I mean, I'm absolutely convinced it's the worst you'll ever see. So then we say, okay, well, what did happen here? In 2022, 20% stock, 80% bond still got smoked. It was down 14%. Where 80% stocks, 20% bonds was only down 18%. So that gives a lot of people like, oh, I'm getting out of bonds. They didn't do anything like I thought. And that's a one anomaly. But anyway, if you go down here, we're going to see the annualized rates of return. And I'm just using this century because going back to the 80s and 90s when we had the mutual funds as opposed to ETFs, we don't want to do that because the 80s and 90s were very great for both bonds and stocks. I'm just trying to show you that's just not a good trajectory to say, hey, we're going to add the 80s and 90s there because I think, is somewhat biased because we had such good returns for those two decades. So starting in 2000, we have the aughts, and then we have the last decade, and then a quarter going to this, or half in the 2020s. This is the way to do it. You have good, you have bad, and you get pretty good. That's just a fact. So anyway, where you got good, you got real good, horrible for bonds in 2022, and then you got bad from 2000 to 2009. So you can see a pretty significant difference in the annualized rate of return. And now if you're a growth investor, where you're not pulling money from your portfolio, this 360% difference, basis point difference between the 2080 and 8020, that is significant over a 25-year time frame. That's a lot of money you left on the table. Again, that's if you're a growth investor. If you're an income investor or you're pulling money from it, look at this. The worst year is 28.6%. They screwed down the max drawdown. That's not right. I told Claude, I said, dude, you screwed this up. They said, you're right, we did. I said, why did you put max drawdown lower than the worst year? Right here, you can, I mean, not low, right there. Max drawdown was -6. The worst year is 14.3. That's wrong. They said right here. I probably mixed up different time periods. They screwed up. You just got to be careful on this stuff. That is absolutely not the worst drawdown. The worst drawdown for the S&P 500 and VTI was 57% in 2007 to 2009. So this isn't anywhere near that. This is just the worst year. So they should have got that. Anyway, point being is even with the worst year, we're only down 14.3 in the 2080 portfolio, but the 80-20 portfolio, we're down twice that. twice that. All right, and again, if we went back to 2007 to 2000, let me actually see. Can you recalculate calculate worst drawdown? Let's see what they got there, because that's not. We'd like to see the worst drawdown. Anyway, so the point being is you get 9.8, 8.6, 7.4, 6.2. So the higher return, higher aggressive, the more returns, the worst drawdown. The less aggressive, the lower returns, the lower drawdown. That's it. Anyway, so he's redoing it here. Let's take a pause and see what they come up with. So right here, our worst drawdown in the 2080 portfolio is 11.2%. So for retiree, that's fantastic. Look at the difference. 4060 to 2080 is almost 100% higher max drawdown. Look at that. That's pretty interesting. And it's 4 times as high for 80-20. So this is a great retiree portfolio if you're nervous Nelly about the markets. And again, nothing wrong with that. The drawback, of course, is again, you only average 6.2. And the standard deviation is low, but your max drawdown was low, but your rate of return was significantly lower. Significantly. And your max drawdown in 80-20 was significantly higher, but a significantly higher rate of return with a significantly higher standard deviation. So it really depends. So what you should do is say, I have 2 funds to invest in, VTI and BND. I just want to know what I can handle. Remember, the max drawdown, that meant if you had we'll just say $100,000, you were down to 58.3%, or $580,000 in the 80-20 portfolio. The max drawdown in the 2080, you're only down to 88%, 88,000. Could you handle that? I don't know. That's where you have to decide. But you don't need anything more than this. That's just it. VTI and BND. Nothing more. All right. Of your thoughts, smash that like button. We'll see ya.